Watertown City work session tonight on Monday, the 14th day of April, and the work session begins 7 o'clock. We have the mayor with us to give us some details about some things that are on the agenda. So, Sarah Pierce, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Before we talk about the agenda, one of the things that Councilmember Cliff Olney has brought up once again, the ethics charges against him, and asking about the $19,000 that has been spent so far by the city on the attorneys for the city against him, and asking who authorized that expenditure. And usually when you spend city money, there's a vote on city council to yay or nay, do you want to go ahead with this? No vote was taken, and so he's raising an interesting point. Is it worth asking? Is it worth questioning the process here?
I mean, I think at any point in time, a council member has a right to ask those questions. It's a valid question. The issue at play right now, I think, is he's brought legal action against the city as part of this ethics complaint. So he's been instructed to direct any questions of that type of nature through his attorney, and our attorneys can communicate with his attorney again because there's legal action that's ongoing. So that's the appropriate way to handle it.
And to this level of an ethics complaint, I don't think anybody's an expert on how the ethics commission or committee works or how you step through this all.
Quite honestly, in city history, I don't know that there has been, as you said, an ethics complaint or process that has risen to this level. So certainly we could go back and see what the process has been in the past, if there's been an ethics complaint of similar magnitude, but I think we are in a bit of uncharted territory here.
And you may not know the answer, but if it comes up where there should have been a vote for that $19,000, where do you guys go from there?
I think we would that'd be a question for our attorney, how we would handle that. I wouldn't know.
Stuff on the work session here tonight, New York SWIMS. I thought this was something for coming up for this year, for 2025. This is actually going to give you money back, the city of Watertown back some money from last year's swim season. What's happening?
So this will be a discussion about a grant that Jefferson County was awarded, $50,000 through the New York SWIMS program. It's a initiative that I believe was launched by Governor Hochul, was included in the budget previously. The city of Watertown will be getting $20,000 out of that pot of money, and those funds will be used to cover expenses associated with lifeguards. We had an increased number of lifeguards that allowed the pools to stay open for longer hours, as well as offer some more programming like a senior swim. So that $20,000 will go toward those expenses.
And 20 grand is good when it comes to any sort of putting money in the coffers. New York SWIMS, a new program from the state.
Correct.
Was it new last year?
I believe it was
rolled
new
out
last year,
last
yes.
year, or in the fall of maybe 23 and allowed for 24. But you don't know if it's in the budget, late state budget right now. So you
Correct.
don't know if it's in the budget. Are you hoping that there is this money again? This is a way, I think, that the governor was trying to give money to communities that could help out areas where swimming pools were needed or lifeguards were needed to help out areas where people could use that kind of recreation.
Correct, yes. Right. And as you said, late state budget, so we'll see if anything similar to this or this program is included. I would encourage the city again to go after those funds if they're available.
Golf course is opening, trying to think between the two that are in the city next week. It opens up,
21st,
right?
I
Yeah,
believe,
so it
yes.
opens up. That's good news, and I'm just thinking of that because whenever you talk about pools, you talk about golf course, it just comes up in my head. But that's exciting to have the course opening back up, and we talked a little bit about it last week. But any update on that, or just open up and let's see how it goes?
We're just going to open up, and again, hope that we get a lot of business up there. We'll have the restaurant up there again. I know there's a lot of excitement, at least I've heard from golfers in the community, golfers from outside the city of Watertown who have golfed there previously, who are excited to get out there again. So, we wish for the best for the season.
It could be an asset to where people come into town and then they get lunch or buy gas or something of that, right? If you make it that sort of an attraction.
Sure.
So it's another year of trying to build on what the golf course could be. The next thing on the agenda tonight, discussion item 2, talking about vehicle and traffic, Chapter 293. I had to ask about what's Chapter 293. This has to do with some on-street parking and just parking in
Correct.
general in one section of the city. It's pretty congested down there, right?
Yes, so we're going to talk about several streets. Newell Street, Hawk Street, those are the two main streets that I think you're alluding to are quite congested, but there's going to be some road construction going on there. So our Complete Streets Committee had looked at what should be done about parking. Should we do anything to address parking in that area in advance of these road construction projects? So that's taken care of as the projects go along. And so essentially the proposal is going to be to further restrict on-street parking in that area. If anybody's been down there recently, you know it's quite busy with 2 restaurants down there and another brewery coming soon. So this, I guess, is an opportunity for the Complete Streets Committee to brief us on their proposal for restricting traffic down there. I guess one of my concerns would be, I know just from going to, for example, Garland City, the parking lot there is very small. I think they rely on that on-street parking for their business. So that's something that I think, and this was noted in some of the information that we received in advance of tonight's meeting, that there'll be opportunities to discuss with property owners there and business owners about how any changes would impact them.
Any idea how long this restriction or change on on-street parking could go for? How long the
Well, this would
construction
be a
goes?
permanent change.
So you're looking for permanent, okay.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, this, if we're, just so people know, when you're talking about Hawk Street and Newell, that's where 1812 used to be Maggie's. That's where that is. That's where Garland City is. And then you have the apartments there, but the bottom floor of that, which used to be a juice bar, is going to become another brewery.
Yes.
So now you're adding another one down there, which it could add to more people wanting to be down. That's a tough area to park right now.
It is a tough area to park right now. You've got the city lot there, and then I believe what are a couple private lots, and then there's the parking for the apartments. So it is a tough area, and I think when you bring more business down there, it's only going to get more difficult. But this is kind of what the city has envisioned, is kind of a riverside entertainment / dining district. So it's nice to see that development happening. It's just, how do we, A, make sure there's places for people to park, and B, make sure it's safe.
Yeah. And if you think of other cities where people go, you do have to park somewhere and walk.
I do think that people aren't as used to doing that here as
Right.
we're kind of spoiled to be able to get, parking close to businesses where it's just a quick walk. But in general, when you go to any other mid to large size cities, that's the norm, is to park and maybe walk 5 minutes.
Yeah, and in the wintertime, it's tough to do
Yes.
that. But I mean, you have the big parking lot of JBY's. You'd have to take maybe Veterans Memorial Walkway down. You could do that along the river and get down there. But that's
You
quite
could.
a walk.
That's
a
a hike.
hike, right? So, but really, there isn't any other close parking beyond that one city lot right next to the
Right.
restaurants down there, which is small.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. So that'll be interesting. Have you heard anything from the business owners down there?
No,
right
not yet. And I think this is
The start?
a very new discussion that's happening tonight. Will be kind of the start of it. So hopefully tonight we'll kind of see some maps and look at specifically where they want to restrict the parking, that kind of thing. And we can, again, I think the most important piece of this is reaching out to those businesses and saying, hey, what are your thoughts on this?
And I asked you before we started, but the lot, if you go closer to Guilfoyle and up, there's a gravel lot there that a lot of, I think, kayakers may use during the summertime. Is that city-owned or private?
I believe that's privately owned.
Okay, so that's not an option here in terms of something the city could do. So, all right, so it'll be talked about tonight. You're going to have the city engineer giving you an update on that, along with some others, including folks from the planning department. And then the third one here, back on the list, is the water reservoir update. The leak is still going. You talked about this not long ago.
Correct.
Is there an update now?
I think tonight we will be getting an update from our city engineer from the water department regarding this project. Just to refresh everybody's memory, it was about a month or so ago we had a presentation where the recommendation was to replace that reservoir because of the leaking. So we talked about several different options. At the end of the day, it's going to be an over $4 million project, I believe, just to replace the reservoir, and then additional significant costs for a transmission line as well as the demolition. So this is a very high price tag item that we would be looking at. And so at that work session where we discussed this, the timeline was presented as it would be put out for an RFP, and then perhaps if everything went well, if we got some good proposals back, there could be a beginning of the design phase in May. So I anticipate tonight we'll hear where we are with this and kind of formalize whether or not council wants to actually go ahead with pursuing this project.
Water's expensive.
Yes. Water and the water infrastructure, yes.
Not only the reservoirs.
Well, I remember when we got the ARPA funds, so the funds, the COVID-related money, was like $23 million. And at the time we were told you could probably spend all of this on water infrastructure and still not have enough.
Yeah, pipes or the reservoir.
Yes.
You didn't know you had the reservoir problem
Right.
when you got that money, really. You knew it was there, but what the fix would be. But on the other end, the water coming in and the way it's treated, right? You still have the disinfectant byproducts project that has to be done. And that's still at $60 million, I think, with no grant money. You've applied a lot, or the city has applied a lot for it.
And we're continuing to do so.
Is that any update on that, or is that status quo? The project has to happen.
That, as it is right now, yes, the project has to happen, and we're continuing to work with our partners and plan and try to find those grant funds anywhere we can.
Yeah, and each time that there's a list of grants out from New York State, it's we run through it here in our newsroom to see, is Watertown getting any of that? 'Cause I know that you guys are waiting on it, but you haven't, and a lot of money has gone elsewhere, and that's got to be.
It's frustrating,
I would
but
guess.
I think the word's out there that we have this project that we have to address, and that it's very important not only to our community but the Fort Drum community. So I would be hopeful that, given all the attention and given the importance of the project, that ultimately, hopefully, we'll be successful in some of these bigger grants.
And I forget, is it available, or are funds from the federal government available for that, or from Department of Defense, because Fort Drum sometimes relies on the water
That's
here?
the grant that we've applied for a number of times, the DSIP
DSIP,
grant. And
yeah.
so that's that has to do with communities that are related to or close by military communities, military installations. So that's what has enabled us to apply for that grant a couple times. But again, we haven't been successful. Hopefully this year will be our year. Every year there's kind of a different focus for that grant. So if I recall correctly, when the YMCA got the grant, it was because there was a recreation focused year for that grant program. So hopefully this year it'll be something that matches up with what we're looking to do.
Yeah, and that was $9 million for the YMCA on that $30 million project. So I think is it up to $9 million that you can get out of that project, or out of that funding?
I think it changes, but I think in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and it kind of helps to have your city manager as a person that knows how to navigate some of those
Very
federal
helpful.
programs, right? Because he
Yes.
worked on Fort Drum for decades.
Very helpful, not only with knowing the programs, but knowing a lot of the players. So hopefully that'll work to our advantage this year.
Anything else? Did you see anything in the city manager's update? There's nothing here. I read it. I didn't see anything specifically really out of that.
Nothing major, but
Yeah.
I would encourage people to go and read it if they want a quick synopsis of what our different departments have been working on. It's a great overview, lots of great pictures, information about things coming up. So people can find that on the city website.
All right. And finally, I'll just ask you about, and you and I were just talking about it, but cross-border
Yes. Relations.
And there was some stuff on social media where the police department for Watertown came out and said there aren't reports of any cars from Canadian license plate cars that are being vandalized or windows being smashed, tires slashed. When that stuff comes out, it's frustrating, right, on social media. So any thought on that? I mean, what do you, if you looked into it, you've talked to the police department, or what is your reaction to when that kind of false information is put out there?
The first that I heard of this entire issue was when I saw Channel 7's report on this. And so just for anybody who might not be familiar, an individual, Canadian individual, I believe she was, had put a video up on TikTok saying that she had heard that somebody had their windows smashed and their tires slashed at Cracker Barrel. And it turned out to be, all signs point to it being false. She removed the video. She wouldn't comment. So I think and there was, I guess, notably no police report filed with any of the law enforcement agencies. I think the big thing would be, tensions are obviously high at the federal level between Canada and the U.S. Vet what you're looking at on social media, because not everything you see is accurate. And I think that things like that, they just further damage any kind of relationship with our Canadian neighbors. And that's a relationship that I think a lot of people rely on. A lot of people appreciate that relationship. I know I enjoy going to Canada. I love seeing parking lots full here with Canadian visitors. So we want to keep that relationship intact despite what might be going on at the federal level. But I think it's things like that social media posting, that are really a detriment. I mean, I was we were chatting before, and I mentioned that CTV contacted me this morning for a comment on that, and I think that's essentially going to be my comment, is to vet what you're looking at on social media, and that despite what's going on at the federal level, we still want to have a good relationship with our cross-border communities.
Tourism is so big here, and it relies on the Canadian visitor to come here, just as Kingston relies, or Gananoque, Brockville, whatever, relies on the American to come over. And you know, I think out of all of the challenges with what's happening at the federal level on many different instances, trade, tariffs, but just the way that the Canadians can feel burned with some of the talk, and whether it's right or wrong, but it'll take a while, I think, for after all this is over with. It could still take a while, because I think this one stings. When you're burned by a friend, if they feel that way, I'm not saying they were, I'm just saying if they feel that way, that it takes a while for somebody to get over that. And I wonder if the effect on tourism will linger well beyond the effects of tariffs and trade.
Well, I would certainly hope not. And I have seen the figures where I think Canadian travel to the U.S. nationwide, I think last I saw it was down by 20% or so. And I think it's a little different for us being so close to the border, that we have that friendship with the Canadians. And I just think that a lot of people put what's going on at the federal level aside, and hopefully we'll still come over and visit here. Likewise, we'll go over and visit Canada. That's not to say that there might be a little bit of hesitancy. You know, I mean, I went to Canada a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of, frankly, a little bit nervous. Like, how is an American, are we going to be received? You know, are they that upset that we're not going to be welcome? But what I did find was that people were very welcoming, and I kind of even asked them, I said, what's the atmosphere over here? And they said, oh, actually, somebody who I spoke with at a business that I was at said, oh, well, we don't mind at all. I'm going to Nashville next weekend, and so on and so forth. So I think there is that closeness, that it would take a lot to damage the relationship between our close cross-border communities, but I think there's probably, with a lot of people, that hesitancy to come over the border. And what I would say to those people is, you're certainly obviously welcome here in the North Country, and you know, we love our Canadian neighbors and wouldn't want anything that's going on at the federal level, as you said, right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not, to damage that relationship.
Yeah, and if you don't come because of your opinion, that's your prerogative.
Yes.
You can do that. But if you're worried about vandalism and the violence, I mean, the police department has said it's just not true.
Right.
You know, as I told you, if somebody was affected by it and they filed that police report, we would be somebody that would do a story on that, right? I mean, we want to show both sides. So, all right, very good. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for watching.